Up next, we have Prashant Singh, who's the CTO and co-founder of LocalData. LocalData is a platform and a geo toolkit focused on entrepreneurs in the civic space, giving them kind of more and better tools and data to do their job better. He's hoping that his talk today similarly will be a platform so that you can do amazing things on top of it. Thank you.
Hi. So as CTO of LocalData, I witnessed kind of two strong threads in the discourse about civic technology and the ways that it should be better. And of course, one of them is data. But the other, which is really important to us, is design, and in particular things like user-centered design. And so what I want to talk about is kind of how we can start to think about the intersection of these two threads. And there's not like a clear-cut answer. I'm not going to give you a cheat sheet. But it's something that we have to grapple with, and I think that there are some interesting areas if you start to combine them. So I lied, I'll give you one cheat sheet. These are things that you could do to make me happier side during the talk. But this is an example actually of poor design. If I have to give you a gross manual, then I'm doing it wrong. If you cried at the wrong time, then that was actually my fault. So you'll often hear about data-driven decision-making, or kind of insert buzzword here. And that doesn't necessarily mean that something is totally automated or even formulaic. What it means is that we're looking at relevant data and we're making deductions, and then we turn those into measurable actions. And then we can kind of repeat this process. We can look at the outcomes of those actions. And that last step is really important, and in part because there is a little bit of a bit that I just told you there. We're not making deductions when we look at data, despite what Sherlock Holmes would have you believe. This is abductive reasoning. And what that means is that when you look at the data, you don't know what's happening in the real world. You can create a hypothesis, but then you have to test the hypothesis. And so that measurability is super important. And then you create this feedback loop. And so a lot of healthy processes that you see people starting to adopt are actually iterative in this way. You think something, you build something, and then you figure out, am I on something or not? And we see that echoed in the design world. It's not just locking yourself in a room and saying, like, I've created the perfect chair. You need to really understand the user, and not just kind of like how long it takes them to do something. Say you're trying to improve the grocery store checkout experience. It's not just about reducing the time in line. It's about understanding their frustrations with that if you're really taking on user-centered design. And are they frustrated because it's taking too long, or because they feel like they'll be late for something, or because they're bored or cramped, or the uncertainty? And so by really investigating that, you can start to come up with potential solutions. And some grocery stores say it should be single file, and then it should fan out. And that's the best line experience. And you might disagree. And so it's not a formula for a perfect outcome, but it's a process by which you can say, okay, well, if we were wrong, then now we should be able to figure out some other thing that's happening. And we can go back into this process and successfully produce better designs. So how do these fit together? There's not kind of this neat, clean toolkit like I mentioned. But there are some really interesting examples of data and design coinciding. And one of them is mapping. Once upon a time we had paper maps, but now with digital maps we have an immense amount of data, and with navigation it's really skyrocketed. And by studying how people interact with the maps and how they're trying to get from point A to point B, and then looking at their frustrations and their desires in that flow, folks have been able to create navigation experiences that get you through totally crazy places like San Francisco, which is not that easy to drive around, in ways that seem totally unrelated to the old paper map experience. But then if we kind of take a step back, well, how do you manage all of that data? So the people who manage maps, like at OpenStreetMap, where it's an open source map of the entire world. So these are regular people who are expected to edit and augment the map as they see construction happening or they see something missing. The demographics of contributors were totally skewed. And so OpenStreetMap was able to look at the data of what's going on and understand the frustrations that were turning people away. And they designed ID, which is kind of the modern editor for this map, and it's had a great impact. At LocalData, we've taken on some work called Data Canvas, which is sort of a meta tool. It's a way for designers to understand how someone in San Francisco or Singapore or Geneva might want to explore air quality data or sound data, and then build their own designs around that. And I think a really important parallel that's often lost is how software development works. So there's a lot of data that we get to maybe improve performance, and it's more than just looking at the charting software and mimicking that. It's looking at the fact that I can look at a spike and say, okay, in this safe sandbox, let me test out a solution. If I think it works, let me deploy it to the real world, and I can watch that spike disappear. And then I can know that I've improved something and that it was all okay. And this is critical to how how web technology works these days. So as we build in civic technology, we should not just try to kind of create a one-off solution. We should try to empower our customers and our partners to have that same healthy workflow and give them tools that bring them to this world. And I think we should look at that intersection of data and design as we do that. So I know that was kind of a whirlwind, but this is meant mostly just to spark some conversations. And if you're interested in talking more, I'll be around. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.